Sure. So what's happening now is I'm using this as a demo of what we did for our DevFest. So I'm Lloyd Cledwin. I'll start my slide deck-ish here. I've been saying I'm the cheetah from Minneapolis. So I run the Google Developer Group's Twin Cities, which is St. Paul, Minneapolis, and surrounding areas. And we have a similarly sized group. We have our monthly meetups, and we have an annual DevFest event. At our last DevFest event, when Firebase was getting pretty cool, I had been cool for a long time. I was realizing how cool it was. I built this kind of, admittedly, simpleton app, and we took these are NFC cards. You can get these cards for about $0.10 each on Amazon, and you can program them with different data. So all of these have basically a simple endpoint, a URL that then redirects and logs then in our Firebase database. If I go to the dashboard and go to our, I'm jumping around in my demo, DevFest MN. So we've got our treasure hunt app here. And so if you're authenticated, so this is using Firebase authentication with Google+. And so now we've got our leaderboard is updating. You see when it flashes, that means the data has been updated within that node. So that's happening real time, which allows me to then, so I just had a big screen like this sitting at our registration desk at our DevFest. And we made posters of all the different apps, all the different kind of endpoints or different speakers. Giving a live demo. So these are NFC cards. Most Android phones are NFC enabled. You have to turn on your NFC reader, and they're proximity based. So when you get close to an NFC tag, then it will read the data that's on there. All right, I'm going to turn off. Here's this pro tip. No, not that one. All right, I learned this. Someone else was giving a demo. You can go in and mute notifications for an hour or 2 hours in Hangouts and not have to sign out of chat. So you've already learned something today. So this site then we had at a big screen, kind of at a registration table, and I had posters printed of all the different products and our vendors, and I just hid these behind the poster, and when people would find them throughout our event, they could scan them, and then we gave away prizes for people who had their leaderboard. But this is basically an execution of the simple apps the simple demos that they have on the Firebase site of a leaderboard that you can then modify. You could have this be your check-in, check-out, say at work, or time at your home gym, or whatever you would like it to be, just to log some pretty simple data. This is posted on, well, I'll get into GitHub, but the code for this treasure hunt app is on the GDG Twin Cities GitHub, or my GitHub, one of the others, and I'll link to those as well. So this is the intro to Firebase. I'm Lloyd Cledwin. I always take a moment and pause when people ask what it is I do, because it's kind of hard to describe the different combinations of things. I work for a higher education, nonprofit higher education, in the fundraising side. So I'm on the business side of a nonprofit. I volunteer a lot of my time for no money, for one of the highest grossing publicly traded companies in the world. And I also teach at a local graduate programs in software engineering adjunct. So I do a number of things. Primarily I work for Macalester College. I also am the cheetah of the Twin Cities. So this is Firebase. We're going to talk about real time for your back end, for your apps. We're all making apps every day. This is what we do, whether they're mobile or web. I'm guessing most of you in here are really comfortable working on the web. You've got an idea, you think, oh, I might need to put something together. You've got something running on the web, storing data. You've now just built a web app, right? We do this every day. Syncing is hard across different clients, consistency, syncing, but your users don't care because they expect speed, they expect to be able to be offline, multi-platform, simple authentication. This is 2015, people. This is what's expected, and honestly, as developers, we should think of a lot of those things kind of at the service level. We don't need to re-engineer all of the things kind of in the service level. When you think of building the app, your web app, and the reason you built a web app was not necessarily to rebuild a back end. You wanted to solve an issue. And the work being done there is not necessarily rewiring all the back end. So creating an app shouldn't require managing complex infrastructure. We think, okay, we're just going to build an app. We've got our full stack. We're going from the client, to server. We maybe have to do some authentication. We've got the database and the server stored, but it's never quite that simple. You may have database replication. Your servers are, you have to manage load balancing, all the different pieces. The clients are not always just one client. We don't have the luxury anymore of expecting an 800 pixel wide desktop screen. Most of us now should have, as developers, you should have at least 2 monitors. If you don't have 2 monitors at work, let me know. I'll write your boss a note. It really improves your productivity. So introducing Firebase and the back end of building an app really just takes a lot of the pain out of getting something. For my purpose, I am loving it for just proof of concept. If I've got a kind of one-off app that I'm thinking of, it's no-brainer now for me just to use Firebase, just to toss data somewhere, not need to worry about instantiating a database, defining the table structure, doing all these. So I've got about 50 more slides that came with this deck and that I think are useful. But let's take this code off some sweet jumps, right? That's kind of what we came here for. So let's do some live coding. So I've got a doc. Oops, it took me away. Oh well. This is a demo that we did at GDG Twin Cities, and so this is kind of a living doc. As we update this, we'll update it from here. So you can follow along at bit.ly GDG.TC Firebase. And from there, I also link to the slides and to when I toss up the working demo. All right, so section 0, what is Firebase? We've kind of talked about that a little bit. Well, I've kind of hyped it up a little bit. Who all saw Martin's talk just an hour ago? Most of you? Okay, so I'm going to gloss over that because it's easier. So step 1 is to set up your environment. How do I view compact? It's a little better. This works really well in the Chrome Dev Editor. Anybody using the Chrome Dev Editor or has used it? A couple people. So I've got a link here in Chrome to install the Google Chrome Dev Editor. It's a pretty sweet tool. So from here, you'll install this in Chrome and then launch it. It's a standalone IDE that makes kind of building simple to complex apps pretty easy. It's nice. I like to use it. I have liked using it for demos because it's a consistent application. Looks like we've got a majority of Mac users in here, a handful of Windows. I'm going to close this because they've stopped supporting the dev editor. It was kind of the Polymer team project that they basically worked really well to build Polymer projects using Polymer, a Polymer app. So I'm going to go down this column here and do it by hand. So anybody on Mac, basically you'll need to browse your files locally, best if you can run a local web server, although it will, I've tested it with Chrome, the current version of Chrome and Firefox on PC and Mac. You can run from file : / wherever your file is. So this demo should work using that as well. Well, whatever. That can be an issue in demos, but we don't need it to be. All right, so create a new project. Here I'm going to live in, make this a little bigger. All right, so go back here. DC demo. I'm going to start over from scratch. DC demo. All right, to prove that this is pretty easy. Cannot remove. Oops. All right. I'm going to make the directory DC demo. If I can type DC demo. All right, and I'm going to go in there, DC demo, and it's an empty directory. I'm going to index.html, so I'm going to create an empty index.html file and open a text editor. Well, now what's going on? All right, fine. Let me quit out of here. I just ran through this morning and it worked fine. So terminal, make that bigger again. DC demo. There we go. All right, so I like Sublime. Sublime is pretty handy to use. Make this pretty big over here. See if I can make this bigger. It's not bigger. So DC demo needs to be refreshed, that directory, because that's not all that's in there. What's going on here? Did I mistype the first one? All right, there. Now they're all gone. Touch, index, HTML. Good demo so far, right? So here's this blank index file. This is where I meant to be. All right, and we are going to say, hi, DC, and save that. Now what I'm doing is I'm running this locally, or on my personal server, cloudwin.com/DC demo. All right, so to prove that this is, in fact, a brand new file, I've got hi DC. So you can, if you'd like to follow along, let me get a show of hands. Who's hoping to follow along in this workshop? All right, about half of you. You're welcome to kind of sit back and just kind of refresh this page as we go through the demo as well. But my intent, it's all right, we're already a quarter of the hour in, which means I've been chatting too much. I hope by the end of an hour that everybody who raised your hand, you'll have this working in your environment. That's the purpose of this workshop. All right, so we're going to delete this, and we're basically going to put in a basic HTML5 document, right? We've got a header and the body. We're going to put at the bottom app.js. Okay, so we're going to reference your app file, your JavaScript file, and we'll say alert hi DC in our JavaScript file. I'll save that as app.js. Okay, so now our app has two files, an index with basically nothing. I took out my hi DC. Hi DC. All right, we'll go back over here and reload this page, and it gives a pop-up saying that we are referencing our JavaScript file correctly and our index file. That's basically kind of the structure and the bones of the app that we're going to use. Now, what I'm going to do is close out of that. go back over here and bounce around a ton to make everybody dizzy. Where are we here? So in this document, what I've done is I've created a GitHub repository. So at this point now, you should have a snapshot of this app. So we've made Firebase, the GDG Twin Cities Firebase Chat Room Code Lab. And what we've done is made branches for each step of this code lab. So now at step 1, you should basically have an index page, which is pretty blank and empty. If typing, brackets and all the things are a pain, or you're off by an open bracket, you can always go back out here and copy and paste. GitHub makes it pretty easy to copy and paste. If you're lazy copy and paster like I am, you always click on raw and you just select all, copy and paste from there. All right, so we are at step 1. We should have an index file and an app, which basically just makes sure that it's all wired up. This is the state that it's in the Chrome Dev Editor kind of new project. So, are we at least there? Everybody who wants to follow along is there? Okay. No no's? No no's is positive. All right, so next step. All of the magic sauce happens by importing this library here. So we're going to go over to our index file, and before our app script is declared, we're going to import the Firebase library. All right, so now we've just enabled our app to use the full power of Firebase. So your index file should look like this. Again, I've tried as best I can to link directly to the file that's being referenced from there and a snapshot of there. So we're going to scaffold our app. So instead of hi DC, what I'm going to do is put in a div called messages with a little bit of styling, and then a form below there with username, message, and a button that says send. So we'll save that. Okay, we'll go back. Why do I have 2 of these open? That's convenient. Close that. And we're over here. Let me get my tabs in order. All right, we'll reload this page. And now, my app behind is still kind of lame. So here we've got basically a big chat window, and where you might put in your username, something, hi DC. All right, we hit send, and it reloads the page because there's nothing wired up to happen there just yet. All right, and my app behind is still frustrating. So I'm going to go back to the app.js, and we'll go back to the workshop here. All right, so that's set up. So that's all ready now for us to start connecting it to some data. In order to connect it to data, you need to first set up your Firebase account. So you go over to firebase.com, you'd log in. I really wanted to have everything empty for my demo to go up through the end, but when you delete a Firebase instance, you can't recreate it with the same name for some period of time, and I don't know how long that is. So the difficulty of creating a Firebase app, here we're going to say new Firebase is the best. All right, so there we've got our new app created here, our new Firebase database running here. This is empty for one little cheat that I hope you will excuse me for. I'm going to use this one, but I have gone through the DC demo. I've gone through and I've cleared all the settings. So the settings right now in this DC demo Firebase instance are the same as if you just created a fresh one. All right, everybody who wants to cross the finish line to this point? Yes? Folks over here, yes, yes, great, super. Now, the key thing is you need to remember this element, what you named, either what you named, if there were not spaces. If there were spaces, it creates this crazy URL. So you can make this a little bigger. All right, so new dash FB dashes. That's hard maybe to remember. So DC demo is what I'm going to use as my app ID. So then if we go back over here, so that's created. We're logged in. You need to remember what it's saying there is you need to remember this URL. That's your referencing URL. So now we're going to wire up the app. So let's go into our database here, DC demo, and talk a little bit about the data structure. So right now, there's nothing in here. It's data and there's nothing. I'm going to go ahead and add. You can type this by hand if you like. We're going to say messages. I'm going to add the first one. I'm going to say username. I'm going to spell it right. Is Lloyd. Okay, I'll add that. And then here I'm going to add message is hi DC from Firebase. Firebase. I have been looking at code for a long time. All right, so there is now the data. We've added data to our database. Great, right? Now, one of the awesome things I've found about Firebase is every data element is an endpoint. This is kind of Firebase has adopted the NoSQL method. So as Martin was saying, he's a tables and index kind of guy. Like I manage Oracle databases and MySQL databases. I'm used to normalized databases. That's kind of the world I'm from. So there's a little bit of a mind bend with some of these things. But where it gets really awesome, so you can now drill into each element, and it's uniquely addressable. So here we're at dcdemo.firebaseio.com/messages. So it will show all of these. Now, if you want to see what the data is being held there, you just tack JSON on the end, and that's the entirety of that's the data. It will return it based on the rules right now. If someone were really quick, they could start inserting data here. So this is the JSON structure. I've got a plugin, a Chrome plugin that formats it nicely. It really comes back, in one line. But it's just JSON. Everything is JSON. This is a RESTful kind of modern API world that we all should be pretty comfortable in as developers.
Question.
Yeah.
How do you get the JSON again?
You go to a node, so like messages,
Okay.
and then put .json on the end of the URL.
Now, I went on and did it too. Did you just enter the data and just update it here? So all of us are all editing this data in real time, there's no control?
Right. So right now, you can't, through this dashboard, you can't get to this dashboard of DC demo. But you can say type in dcdemo.firebase.io.com/messages/JSON or .json.
The demo gave us Firebase-chatroom-code lab.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Can you go in and edit that today, right now?
You could, yeah. So that was a kind of a placeholder one. I promised myself not to blow away all the data in that one, so that the data stays so the demo works well. But so you could drill in here. You've got messages. We could drill into one. Say if you didn't want to return, if you've got a chat app with millions of records, and you don't want to return all millions of records every result, you can go there. Everything is uniquely addressable. .json. So message one. Here's the content in there. If I want one's message, it's one/username is because I'm changing my example. So if I want the username for message one, I can just figure out the URL of that, and it will return the data in exactly how I would expect it as a modern web developer. So you can also, I loaded, or I have a sample JSON. What's this going to do? Well, we'll see. All right, so we'll go here. We'll view this JSON. I'm going to save this into, Where's this saving? We'll save this into downloads. All right. You can also import a JSON file from your dashboard. Whoops, not that one. All right, so I'm going to go up to the top here, DC demo, and import data. And if you find, if you get your downloads sample.json, all right, I'll import that data. It now has imported that JSON file that I just used. Now you'll notice it's different. The data is different because this is NoSQL world. I had messages with an element inside there named 1. The username was the same, but the message is different. So it overwrote the data that was there. So it doesn't, if you aren't careful, you might overwrite data that's in your database. This is just kind of the world that this is. Okay, so we've got that. So now great. That's JSON. Any questions about the Firebase data structure and end of things? We're doing great. It's only half past. Yeah.
Is there I know that you can nest your data really, really deep in Firebase. The docs say that to try to keep as flat of a data structure as you can to help with performance. Is there like a certain number of levels deep that we should aim towards? Like, should we aim to be like one
The
level?
deans are
You can go 32 levels deep.
You can go 32 levels deep, but how deep should you go before it starts to affect performance?
I'm still, I'm the same thing. I was a tables guy before. I'm still wrapping my head around, doing things differently in Firebase.
Okay.
I mean, my current job I'm working on goes about 8 levels deep, but it doesn't suffer at all.
Okay.
It's more a case of I have to look at all of the things the client is doing and say, well, can I figure out a path to what I want to find out each time?
Right. So I've done a couple small Firebase apps before, and I know that was something that gets brought up in the docs. So I was curious if anybody's actually run into a situation where
I've run into no performance limitations.
Okay.
More than that.
right. And then we get kind of into the I don't know, the theory of NoSQL databases and where do you store the data accurately. I'd love to pick your brain about normalizing the data, and in general, all the documentation I've read about NoSQL databases is you don't normalize. So you stuff the whole object that you might want to refer to later within an object that you just updated. Now the danger with denormalized, of course, data is that it might get stale. If a user you've got a record and you store the user data there, if they update their address or their name, their preferred name, doesn't always get updated in the node over here. So you may have to do a cleanup cycle manually there. Anyway, all right. So we're going to wire up, unless there's other questions. We'll wire up our app here, get rid of that painful alert. All right, so this basically is, again, pretty simple. So what we're doing here is we're defining some page elements. This is not using jQuery. I want to make this as portable as possible. This isn't using any JavaScript libraries. This is just kind of pure JavaScript. So get the element username, messages, and just define some local JavaScript elements. My URL is DC demo. Okay, so this is kind of where the magic of Firebase happens here. This is saying we're going to use this Firebase database. We've got those messages, and then there's a number of actions which you can listen to within Firebase. So what we're saying here is when a child is added, then execute this callback function here, which gets the data of the element, pulls in this, creates a new div element, and appends it to messages. All right, and then it logs kind of some data to the console. So we'll go back over here to our app, reload that. Oh, helps if you save. All right, so we'll reload this app. So now we've got somebody posting some data that's a little unstructured. But here, so it's now pulling data from our app. Where was Firebase dashboard? This one here. So here's 2. Somebody posted an element saying 1 more. All right, so this is good. We've got hackers in the crowd. Always makes it more interesting. So we've got new elements, new data elements showing up in my Firebase. Which there's no security. I haven't defined any security on it yet. But that's great. So this is happening. So now if I type Lloyd, and I've got Lloyd, and my message is, hey, quit it. All right, and I post that. Well, I haven't wired up anything to happen yet with the form. So I have to capture that data from the form, and that's what we do in this next step of the demo here. All right, so we're seeing our messages. We've successfully seen the messages that are in our database and displayed them on our app. Okay, so now we're going to add a listen to the form element here. Okay, we're going to, on the submit event, we're going to stop it from reloading the page, first of all. We'll go ahead and log that we submitted the form. And then this ref, the messages ref, which is defined up here, again, the messages node in our Firebase database, we're going to push to the array of messages this JSON data object, the username with its value, and the message which were defined up here. All right? And then I just do a little bit of tidying up here. I clear the message on the form. I delete the text that was in there, and then I put the cursor back in there so you could keep typing and hitting return. This has nothing to do with Firebase. This is just a little bit of tidying on the JavaScript side. All right, so I saved, right? Make sure I saved. We'll go back to our app and reload. All right, so now Lloyd can say, hey. All right, and that's posting now to Firebase on the form submit, but we've also got a listener sitting there when the Firebase updates to update our database. All right, and Bob's out there. Hey, Bob. All right, so this is good. Now, what's going on? How does this work, right? We're all developers, and we need to be curious, and so let's check this out. So while that's sitting there, we'll open our developer console. And if you go over to, say, the network and inspect the elements, of course I have to reload with developer console open. All right, it's got a couple things, and we're used to, it's too small of a font to see anything. That's better. Okay, come on. Hide that. Or make it giant, apparently. No, down there. Over here. How do I get rid of this thing? No one knows. All right, header. There we go. All right, so if we look through, these are all of the resources that were called when the page loaded. Right, so we've got our DC demo, the root element of that referenced Firebase.js on the remote site, our app.js, and then these 2 elements are showing up here. All right, so let's check out what's going on there. This one, I still don't know what's going on there, but you'll notice the status returned is this kooky 101. Who knows what 101 is about? So this is HTML5, this is WebSockets, right? So it has returned 101 saying I've returned some data, but I'm not done sending that data. So it keeps the connection to the server open. This first one, v5, it never has data. But here, the second one, with DC demo, we've got some elements here, all right? And these are the frames. If you go to the frames tab, the header has all the header information. All right, and now we can watch the frames come across. So we can say Joe, I'm here too. All right, so that just went across, and we're watching now in our developer console what's happening. And so these frames are basically packet elements. So because we're using WebSockets, the packets are a little bit differently shaped, and the frames are individual elements of the packet that are then sent. But that connection stays open, waiting for new frames to come through. So this one actually looks a little interesting. We've got message, I'm here. All right, so there's the chunk of data coming through in our developer console. Any questions? I think that's it's like seeing the magic behind the scenes. All right, everybody who wants to cross the finish line, are we at least here? Yeah?
For me, when I enter the data, it doesn't show up on my Firebase database.
Did the data that you put in the Firebase show up?
Yes, Lala demo came up.
Okay, so that showed up. Did you add the listen element to your app.js? This part here, add listener?
Oh, not yet.
Okay, so that's the part that will capture the data from the form.
Where do you see the undefined, undefined, why is that showing up?
Oh, because what I'm doing, that's a great question. Everything's JSON, right? And so JSON doesn't have a data structure. In my definition of when a child is added, now a child added will sit and listen for new elements to get added to Firebase, but it also, on the initial call, it'll iterate over all of the elements that are there. So when we first load the page, so I could go back over here and reload this page, and it's going to load all that data back in there. It's not going to sit empty and wait for a child to be added. So it's going through there, and it's got defines the. This is new post here is the data, the value of the data that's passed back from this snapshot. So this is a callback function, which includes a chunk of that data, and it's all JSON. So here I'm looking for new post dot username. Well, that's undefined. In the data that we don't know who stuffed into our database, here we've got this element here. There is no username. In this node, in 2, there's no username right there.
But the message also says undefined.
The message says it's undefined because if we look under the element, it contains an object named this other thing, so the message is undefined at that point in the node structure. All right, so here we are to here. I can close that, go back over here. All right, so now I'm impressed. There's very few of you hacking away at this. So my demo isn't always working. So I'm going to add some data in here. So we see, it's running off the screen. This is getting a little sloppy. This isn't a very good chat window. All right, if I reload this, it's going to load all that data in there. Even if there's a million records, that's not necessarily what we want. So there's a little bit, we've got a little refinement here. You can add functions to your reference. The one that I use a lot is this limit to last. So if you're data logging, I've got an example that I'll show you in a bit about data logging. Well, you might have a couple 100,000 records in there. You don't necessarily need to plot those on a graph going back forever. So I'm going to add here, rather than on child added, I'm going to put in this limiter and say just limit it to the last 20. And then I'm also going to add this little piece here, which will just kind of tidy up our UI. I'm not a designer. So this clearly is designed by a programmer. But I'm going to save that to make sure that I did. I'll reload this. So now it's only going to load the last 20 elements. ordered by the order that they're in the database. You can do some sorting and indexing based on elements, but that's beyond this demo. So now if I say other Lloyd, all right, so now if I'm here typing some things that, and we reload this page, we did two things. Only get the last 20, and that scroll to end. Okay, the scroll to end does this thing where it scrolls down for us. It just makes it more like a chat window. All right, my hacksers are failing me. But all right, so limit to last, we did that. Real-time working chat. So that's basically our chat app. Who wanted to start is there? You got that working? All right, we got a number of hands held. Anybody running into issues? Okay. So now we get to add some extra value, really, to our app. Right now, so Bob, do you still have that window open? Maybe not. All right. This is what I will do. Let's see. Bob's not going to fess up. There we go. All right. So we got one hackster in the crowd. So at this point in developing our app, we didn't really care about security. We didn't care about whatever. The point was just to get data in there and return data. Well, now we realize, okay, we should probably be a little more restrictive about this app that we've built. So what we're going to do here in the console, so our DC demo, one of the things we're going to do here is security and rules. By default, am I in the right order here? Oh no, first thing we're going to enable, yeah, this would be good. So the first thing we do is enable Google sign-in. So if you've built an app connecting to your Google app in the cloud, you go out to the cloud console and select the app that you're going to use. So you've got some number of apps there, and then in apps and APIs, we've got some credentials, and you will have a in OAuth 2, you create a new OAuth 2, add credentials, OAuth 2. Okay, this would be a web application, web client 2. You need to authorize the origin that it's coming from, so either localhost or the app that we just built. Actually, I think here in our directions, because the way Firebase does it is they handle the authentication for you. So the authentication actually first goes to their servers, then redirects to the Google OAuth. So your redirect URI needs to be here, auth.firebase, with your Firebase defined here. So for example, DC demo. DC demo is what I need to define in my authorized callback. So once you save this in your cloud console, it may take a minute or two to update for this to work. All right, so then you create your client ID, which is the combination of the two. So we'll say, let's see if I can do this. Copy that. All right, we're going to allow this, create that. Create. What doesn't it like? There we go. All right, so here's my client ID. I'm going to copy that. Copy. And my client secret. Copy. All right, and we'll go back now into our Firebase console. In login and OAuth, we're going to go over to Google. Now, I'm hosting my demo site on cledwin.com. So I have to add cledwin.com on the Firebase side so that Firebase knows that, okay, an auth request from cledwin.com is good. We'll let that one go through. If it doesn't, if somebody, say, from hackster.com tries to authenticate to our database, it'll prevent that from happening. So we're going to enable Google Authentication. The client ID is, let's see, did I do the secret first? It was the short one. And then the ID is the long one. All right. What's that? So that now should have enabled our login and auth. Our data here is still just sitting there. So now we're able to, with a really complicated set of logic, I'm going to, over here in index, what I'm going to do is create a login button, which is a button that says login. And then with really strong security here on the form, I'm going to say style display none. All right. So now, if you go over here and reload this site, did I not save this? Should always save it. Reload. All right. Oh my gosh, I can't post to the form. Well, you know, if you had your developer, nice. Now we're talking. All right. So now it's saying to log in with Google. All right. So if I log in with Google, nothing happens because I haven't wired that up. We'll go over here. All right. We need to add to login, add event listener. So login is the login button. Where's my, something's not defined right. Login button, Google. Okay. Let's do it, right? So now down at the bottom of our JavaScript, let's save that. So we've got our login. Have I not defined login? Oh, look at that. I did it Trixie style. So login's up there and ready and waiting. So we're adding an event listener for when that click happens. Now we're going to use our the Firebase library and auth with a OAuth pop-up. So just make sure I save that. Go back over here, reload this. All right, so now we've got data showing up, log in with Google. So this is going to pop up this window. Oh, I've already, yeah. So let me open an incognito screen, and we'll log in with Google, and this will say, okay, go ahead and sign in. 10 minutes? All right, sign in with your Google account. GDG Twin Cities, because of course everything else has two-factor on. All right, so this is the first time you do this. It says, hey, project default service account would like to update this. So you need to update this on your Google Apps side to make that look a little bit nicer. So we're going to go ahead and authorize this, and now it says GDG Twin Cities can post. All right, so I'm logged in over there. Now I can go back over here, and I authenticated. What it did, it added, when the auth data is returned, it's a chunk of user data. And that user data has elements to it that's unique to the different services that you use. So auth data, Google, display name is this one, so Lloyd. All right, so that filled that in, and now we also made this non-editable. Again, pretty simple, not really fully secure. But what we can do is go over to the last step in security, is to go to the security rules. So Bob, without, or whoever that is, Smooth Monster, All right, don't reload your page when I make this change. So I'm going to the security and rules. Rather than let everybody as a global rule be able to write, I'm going to say only write if your authenticated is not null. So you have authenticated based on Firebase's internal workings. All right, so I'll save those rules. And now, where this gets really cool, I think, is we go over here. So now Angry Monster can no longer post. So who is that person? No, oh, come on, this is part of the demo. So all right. Is it Eric?
Cody.
Cody. So Cody, if you post again, does it look like you're posting?
It does look like it, yes.
So Cody thinks that he's still being Trixie Hacksaw.
But I see other people posting.
So Claudia has reloaded this page, likely on Cledwin. Claudia.
I see a hey too as well.
I saved it after this point. So
Yeah, I saw a Sia trying, which is what I sent, that didn't show up there, and then a hey too.
oh, nice. So it's using outdated rules. Messages, they're not showing up over here. That I think it's a pretty nice touch where it's still, because your connection's still open, you can still bang away. What's it called? Shadow banning. It's like shadow banning on discussion boards. All right, so apparently I'm out of time, but I think we just finished our demo, right? So next thing that you could look into, there's a complex, you can make your security rules really complex. You can set specific rules for each node element. So if you wanted anybody to be able to write to Wild West node, fine. You could create in your security rules, you could say, at Wild West, read true, write true, but all else needs to be authenticated. You can also set read only to, say on the users table, users can only read their own data. And that's a simple one-line security definition within there. So it's a pretty easy way to publish your site locally out to Firebase. I also tacked on here at the end some other topics of reference. This was adapted from Berkeley GDG, who did a pretty cool tutorial. GeoFire, if that's working, it keeps failing. Oh, it's up, maybe? All right. So GeoFire is an implementation using GIS language and Firebase as the back end, so you can query using standard GIS methodologies of only, let's say, a mile from a point, a geolocated point. And so now we've got here within this circle, I can see live updated public transit data from San Francisco, which is that's a pretty sweet implementation. So here's a bunch of other resources, some videos at the end of this doc. Was there anything else I wanted to go through? I lost my demo, Cledwin. You feel free to look through the rest of the slides that I had. The one example I wanted to show was this is talking about how easy this is. We're having some kind of internally at work. We're having some issues with data consistency, so I just wrote a quick logger. The data is just being tossed up to Firebase, and this is, I changed it before this demo to run every 5 seconds. So it runs every 5 seconds to see how long it takes to execute a simple task. Post that out to Firebase, and now kind of throughout the day I just leave this window open on my desktop, and I can see when the users are experiencing some slowness. Right? Totally not necessary for Firebase. I could just refresh the page, my lazy self. But it was a fun implementation, and I've been logging this for a month plus, and easily done in the free plan. So it really is becoming this place where, boy, I'm just going to stuff data there and forget about it because it's so easy. All right, it is 2 o'clock. Any questions? All right. Thank you all. There's more swag in the box. I can't take that on the plane. Thank you all. That's why I'm clapping for you all. All right.
Sorry.
Hi.
Ahmed.
Ahmed.
Yeah. I came late, so I want to know how to access this.
Oh, yeah.
I tried to
I should post it.
So I checked your Twitter.
Oh, on my Twitter. Let me post it out there. And my Google Plus. I'll post it out there as well.